Hey folks, yours truly here, FreezeFly87 Wrestle Talk. Yep, I'm going to be talking some wrestling. Yep, some professional wrestling. And it's obviously, maybe arguably, one of the greatest shows on earth and has been for, ever since the 60s and 70s, especially in America and even, in Europe and other places like that. Well, I'm just going to be discussing the basic aspects on what went, well, not really on what went down, but what wrestling was like in 1999 up and through into WrestleMania 16, aka WrestleMania 2000. This is my favorite part of the history of the sport of professional wrestling, because I feel like in 1999, that is when WWE or WWF, even more compared to 1998, was on top of WCW already, and the content was getting edgier. Maybe not as adult content related like what WWF was in 1996 and 1997. I'll probably discuss those in another video from what I watched of what I saw of WWF in 96 and WWF in 97, which, yeah, like I said, especially, in the, before the Attitude Era officially came into play, the content was a little bit more adult-related and themed, but anyway, as I was gonna say, though, WWF 1999 up until 2000, WrestleMania, aka WrestleMania 16/2000, this was a very wonderful time and profitable year for the company and for the show in general. I mean, of course, this marks the debut of SmackDown, which, in my opinion, SmackDown's a lot better than Raw in many ways, mostly on the fact that it's 2 hours instead of 3 hours. Of course, at the time, Raw was 2 hours too, and it was mostly just Monday Nitro that was going for the third hour in its later days. And in my opinion, I think professional wrestling, if it's a weekly basis show, it should be no more than 2 hours, in my opinion. Because I don't think hardly anybody really has time to stay up for 3 hours until an hour or less before midnight just to watch a wrestling show. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I pretty much prefer to watch it on my own time rather than watch it when it's airing anymore. But, anyway, but let's go on ahead and start talking about the basics I remember watching and catching from WWF 1999 to 2000, or early 2000, up until the beginning of April of that year. Well, the biggest highlighted feuds, my favorite feuds of that era, would have to be Al Snow versus Boss Man, which were also in the initial stages of SmackDown that was airing on UPN at the time. Yeah, which is now known as the CW, since UPN and the WB no longer exist. They merged and created the new one. Well, actually, it's not really new. It's been out since 2006. Known as the CW. But anyway, yeah, that was a really interesting feud, though, because Al Snow and the Boss Man had that, kind of polar opposite persona that they made potential candidates to be each other's rival in a feud story that was a part of professional wrestling. I mean, it mostly involved, Al Snow having the championship and Boss Man kidnapping his dog and holding it for ransom so that way he can hand over the title. Well, he ends up beating him for the title on one edition of SmackDown, but he still doesn't hand over and surrender his dog, It just kind of shows you that wrestling can be a pro sport for anybody, and that you don't have to be 100% in athletic condition in order to do this. I mean, it's for, circus performers, it's for, lumberjacks, just about you name it. Anybody can really participate in this thing if they had the strength, if they were, as long as they're physically healthy, it's just all a matter of that, makes people good candidates to be a performer for this kind of show. But yeah, I could go on more about what I kind of remember about the Boss Man Al Snow feud, but I'm mainly just taking into consideration talking about Boss Man holding Al Snow's dog, you know, his little chihuahua for ransom because he really just wanted the championship, but he still refuses to hand over the dog. But that all comes to a close when they have a match at the pay-per-view after that, which I think was Armageddon 99. I think we one of Armageddon. I'm pretty sure. Wait, no, it wasn't Armageddon 99 because Armageddon 99 that was in December, but it was that other one. Okay, can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was that really big pay-per-view though. Unforgiven, actually, yeah, it was Unforgiven 99. That's it. Pretty sure that's more what it is, because yeah, Armageddon 99 was another good highlight in that era of wrestling, and I'll probably get to that here in just a few minutes of the video. But yeah, and another good thing about WWF 1999-2000, along with the Al Snow Boss Man feud, alongside with that, you also had Crash Holly, who was running around with the Hardcore Championship, defending it 24 hours, which arguably, maybe more so or less so, influenced the 24/7 title, which would come out like 20 years later, and R-Truth to be having it, let alone, it seems like R-Truth's had that thing longer than Crash had the Hardcore Championship. Just seems like Hardcore, I mean, you know, Crash Holly, you know, with the Hardcore Championship, it's like Crash was like defending that even in like a little kiddie playground against like the Acolytes and all that. I don't think it was the Acolytes. I know he was defending it against somebody in this little like kiddie park. And I know there was also those, you know, the Mean Street Posse. I think it might have actually been them who was going after him for it and that. But, yeah, Crash Holly with the Hardcore Championship. I was going to say, enough said. That was probably another really big highlight of this, and one of the basic aspects of that era in wrestling. And, trying to think here of some other feuds. Well, I did like it when Jeff Jarrett had the Intercontinental Championship and was feuding with China over it, but really the only reason mostly why this feud was occurring was because Jeff Jarrett was on bad terms with WWF all of a sudden. He just could not really get along with them anymore, and he wanted to be released from the company, kind of more so or less so. I mean, I'm just kind of speculating on this. I don't know the entire story. But anyway, I mean, of course, because, you know, the whole reason why Jeff Jarrett ended up forming Impact Wrestling at the time, TNA, was to have a second promotion because he didn't have any place to wrestle, and he was not on good terms with WWF, WWE, which would later be when the time he put in TNA into reality. And, but anyway, yeah, I'll probably go maybe discuss more about what Jeff Jarrett's heat was in another future video, because I don't really know a lot about it, but I know a fair amount of stuff, because for a while I was an avid Impact Wrestling watcher, and I watched a whole bunch of other stuff from like way old and stuff in regards to TNA Impact, and interestingly enough, even back in like 2006, when Raw and SmackDown were kind of like struggling, and it was Impact and WWE's ECW brand that was kind of like more compelling to watch. But anyway, I'll get to that in a much later video. But yeah, I'm gonna go on ahead and finish talking about this era of the Attitude Era, this particular little chunk. You of course had Triple H feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, up until November of 1999, because that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't cleared to wrestle because of the neck injury he took from Owen Hart 2 years prior to that, and he had to undergo neck surgery. He was out of action for like almost a year, and yeah, for like nearly a year. I mean, he was gone from November of '99 to like the very end of September of 2000, and basically this allowed, you know, Triple H to, you know, be that guy that everybody like cheered on in terms of a heel, and, you know, giving them like another like really top superstar to cheer and to, you know, hope wins a match and all that and carry on his reign. And let alone his relationship with Stephanie McMahon was just initializing here. And yeah, that's another really big important aspect of this time in WWF is that Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. In terms of the story, and I guess kind of in real life too, I don't really know entirely about that, but I know in the story, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were first an item in this part of the era. And of course, Vince McMahon in the story, he was disapproving of it. He didn't want Triple H near Stephanie, blah blah blah, all that jazz. And yeah, Triple H even temporarily, therefore, was in a feud with Test, who was Stephanie's former lover. And Triple H and Test actually having matches actually went down pretty smoothly, and it would have been cool if they probably could have had like a more ongoing feud, because I mean Test and Triple H really had what it took to be rivals in any like part when they were both active in this business. But anyway, yeah. Triple H, though, I mean, he did, however, feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin until Survivor Series 99 and around that. And then, of course, Triple H, he's got the rest of DX to back him up, along with Stephanie. You even have Kane still here, and he's romantically involved with Tori, but later X-Pac has to stab him in the back, betray him, steal his girl, and this creates a rivalry between Kane and X-Pac and even Road Dogg. But, X-Pac was a great performer, though I'm not going to really give him too much of a bad rep for this, because, of course, we remember him as the 1, 2, 3 kid from the, the New Generation era. We remember him as Mr. Six from WCW, and he joined the NWO. Yar NWO for life. And it's just kind of amazing on how he was Mr. Six as a part of the NWO, and then he goes to the rival brand, and let alone DX was the rival for NWO. And it's like, boy, it's like, I mean, even that couldn't really make him escape the New World Order. But I'm just going to kind of end it on that. But it was a pretty good rivalry between Kane and X-Pac. Even they were also a really good tag team, and Kane would later do it in like 15 years later, but with Daniel Bryan, Team Hell No, and then he feuds with Daniel Bryan, before, like even up until like WrestleMania 30, and that's like pretty much when Daniel Bryan had to retire. He, people even were telling him he couldn't wrestle anymore. They were giving him advice that he should just stay away from the ring and just do commentary work or just supportive work towards the sport, but he wanted to actually wrestle. So he did whatever he could to stay in good shape and just recover in a very healthy sense. And he came back and he proved everybody wrong. I mean, just because something seems impossible, that don't mean it ever is. But anyway, that's a little beside the point, off topic here. It was pretty cool when, The Rock and Mankind had the tag team championships. They were the tag team champs. They were a team, and they always had it going on against, other tag teams that were out there. And, but then they would also, not very much like Kane and X-Pac, they too went on to kind of being rivals and against each other, and were no longer a tag team. Mick Foley ends up becoming his other face, his other personality, known as Cactus Jack. And when he becomes Cactus Jack, he's that, he even has a match against Triple H in, at No Way Out pay-per-view 2000, which is actually one of the best WWE, WWF pay-per-views ever made in the history of time. That cage match he had with him was just, it was very intense, bloody, and gory, but it was also very action-packed. It's been a while since I've watched the match, but looking back at it, when I watched of it, it was just very entertaining and cliffhanging too. And even though I think we already knew Triple H was going to win, I mean, we just didn't really know the outcome of the match or any of that, like any aftermath stuff going on. But that all led, of course, to You know, even Big Show, you know, I mean, this was the first time for him in the company because he was with WCW as the Giant from like 1995 up until early '99, and you know, of course, when he goes to WWF in 1999, he no longer, well, he of course goes by his first real name, Paul Wright, for a little while, and then changes it to the Big Show, which you know, I mean, he did gain a lot of success and career potential when he was with the company, even, you know, very alongside with, he was with WCW as the Giant, and even when he was in WCW as the Giant, a lot of people kind of probably found it hard to believe that he was like 25 years old and he could have passed for like 35 or 40 because of his size, all that lumberjack hair, chest hair, just all that. And yeah, but it's obviously that Vince McMahon did make a smart move by hiring Paul Wright to be the Big Show the whole time. He actually was pretty successful in the Attitude Era as well, and you know you know, the WrestleMania 2000, you know, you had the four-way match with you know, against Triple H, The Rock, and you know, you had Cactus Jack and the Big Show. And you had McMahon in each of their corner, you know, Triple H. Stephanie, of course, was in Triple H's corner, and, you know, yeah, yeah, you even had, I know, who was, can't remember who was with everybody else. It's kind of been a while back. I may have to rewatch the match again, but anyway, I've watched the pay-per-view event twice, and it's kind of hard to keep track of all that hype and stuff that goes on in it. Call me a little illiterate for this, but I'm just kind of sharing what I kind of know from like the littlest details. And I'll definitely go back and rewatch a lot of this stuff to make my points a little bit more accurate. But yeah, I mean, I do remember in that four-way match, though, it kind of seemed like it was more of a triple threat, though, because Big Show was eliminated a little later, early on in the match, and then it became a triple threat. And even after Cactus Jack was eliminated of it, though, I mean, even it still went on as one-on-one between Triple H and The Rock, which was already practically even right then a feud, and then it would later on continue. And it seems as though that this was obviously the hype and fame that The Rock even got in order to be as popular of a movie star as he's been ever since The Mummy Returns. And, you know, this was a great time for WWF. It was probably more or less a little bit of a turning point for them. A high profitable year. It was the peak of the Attitude Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin was missing, and so was The Undertaker, but even The Undertaker in a lot of 1999, though, before he had to take time off, when he was the leader of the Ministry and all that, which was a pretty good faction in the era, you know, because Ministry, you know, they also were in cahoots with Midian and Viscera, and they were pretty entertaining performers, especially seeing as the fact that Midian used to be Phineas Godwin, and Henry and Phineas Godwin and Hillbilly Jim, they were an underrated tag team even before the Attitude Era was a factor in wrestling. But anyway, I guess that's all I'm going to conclude it. I don't really have a whole lot of battery power in this camera of mine, so in the meantime, I'm going to just call it a day with this little vlog I've made regarding this part of WWE, WWF, and the Attitude Era, and wrestling. Anyway, I should have more in the future. Stay tuned.